Alright, where do I even begin with this? Might as well say hello. What's going on, guys? My name's MKid75. Welcome back to Destiny. Destiny 2, to be exact. I want to talk about things. I want to talk about things relating this franchise and this game. And those things are why I don't play them. Why I don't play this game or this franchise much or really at all anymore. And that simply boils down to it's just not the game for me anymore. And what do I mean by this? Well, unfortunately, Destiny 2 has been disappointing to say the least. We come we come in from Destiny 1 being after Age of Giants being almost perfect. You know, it still had its problems, and all video games have their problems. But after Destiny 1 being almost perfect, we come into a game like Destiny 2 where, you know, we have the campaign, we have an exposition, but that campaign turns into generic bad guy meets generic good guy, has a downfall, and we recover from downfall to be generic bad guy. Like it's got a very generic exposition to it and plotline to it, which I think Bungie could have done a way better job at it, at least from my opinion. But Destiny 2 has also not sold me, or hasn't necessarily made me want to play it. And that boils down to a couple factors. Back in Destiny 1, since Destiny 1 is the closest comparable game to Destiny 2, we will compare the two, even if it isn't a fair comparison per se. Back in Destiny 1, I had all sorts of reasons to play it. Even if I completed everything, I still wanted to play it. And that's because the game brought me back week after week, whether that's to complete the Nightfall or to get a raid done or something like that. And the reason for that was because there was challenges every week, and not to say the milestones are challenges, but challenges that would give the player an opportunity to earn something, to make a name for themselves. And these were kept in something called a record book. The record books were a great idea because it gave players the incentive to want to get back into the game and to want to play it week after week. Granted, the record books didn't really come in until The Taken King. They were the best idea Bungie had for that game. Now, we could look at record books and milestones being the exact same thing, right? No. See, the thing is with record books, after you complete something, it adds to the bubble. You completed it. You get an emblem out of it, you got a sparrow out of it, you got a shader out of it, you got something in game from it. And that was really cool. And it was only limited to that record book. You couldn't get it anywhere else in the game, which made it that much cooler. But if you got 100% of that record book done, or what Bungie considered 100% of that record book done, you got the chance to order a over a $750,000 T-shirt that was discounted to $35. And what am I talking about with these T-shirts? Well, I've got one behind me from the Age of Triumph. So for completing the Age of Triumph, you got this T-shirt. And it held a bit of the challenges and whatnot. And it was a really cool T-shirt. On the T-shirt side, you got the Vanguard stuff, and you had the ability to customize your username on it. This was the same thing that happened with the Taken King. If you completed the Taken King's record book, you also got the chance at getting the Taken King T-shirt. Now, this was really cool because it gave me a reason to want to go back, do the raid, do the Oryx encounter, you know, go back and just play the game. it gave me that extra bit of focus to want to come back. Destiny 1 also had iconic guns that I wanted to play with. I wanted to go back and play with stuff like Gallarhorn or Icebreaker, especially Icebreaker. I wanted to go grind out in a Magaloop, so I went back and did Vex Strikes. You know, the game had reasons to play it. This game, Destiny 2, doesn't have those reasons. There isn't one exotic in here that is memorable. There isn't an exotic in here that really makes a name for itself. Every exotic kind of feels dull and muted down a bit. Wardcliff Coil or Dubious Volley, preferably, is really the only memorable gun in the game because it was supposed to be part of Destiny 1. Mida multi-tools in this game, of course, but that got nerfed back. But there isn't really one gun that feels different from another gun. Like, excuse me. Like this Better Devils. Cool, it's got explosive rounds on it. It's got frame on it. It's like every other Better Devils in the game. It's all static. And that gives me zero incentive to want to come back. You know, in a loot and shooter, it's okay to have guns that do the same thing if they're exotic. We could go back and look at another loot and shooter. Borderlands 2, the almost perfect loot and shooter. Fuck you, Salvador. The almost perfect loot and shooter. It had legendaries in it, or its exotics that had one general design to them. Let's take the double penetrating unkempt herald, or the herald. The herald fired 5 to 7 bullets per shot in a spread area. That's what it did. But it also had variants to it, where if you had the variant of double penetrating, it fired 10 to 14 shots now, and it did twice the damage. You had the thrusting herald, which added a bayonet to it, which did a 50% better melee overall to your character. You know, as long as you have the general design, the general one function of the weapon, everything else can change. And I think that's what Bungie tried to do here, but didn't hit the marker, per se. Masterworks are okay, but they don't do enough. So what if I get an extra 10% to range, stability, handling, or reload speed? That affects me so little that it doesn't matter if I have a masterwork or not. The only cool thing about a masterwork on my weapon is it produces an orb of light for my teammates. And it's a small orb of light, so it does very little to gain their super back. There's no power fantasy in this game like there was in Destiny 1. In Destiny 1, I had the ability to use a gun called Fatebringer. Okay. Fatebringer is another hand cannon, whether it be the legendary variation or the exotic variation. It had a static roll, it had a static purpose. It was good in all areas, but it was especially good in the raid called Vaulted Glass because it had a perk called Oracle Disruptor. However, the main attraction to Fatebringer was the fact that it had something called Firefly, which was a headshot round that exploded enemies and did a percussive area of effect damage. That was the big attraction to most players. Why? Because it gave them a sense that they had a weapon that they could grasp onto, that they wanted to use. It gave them the sense of, oh my god, I've got this weapon, I'm going to use it because it makes me feel like a powerful badass. In Destiny 2, you don't get that feeling of being a powerful badass. You more or less get the feeling of being, okay, I have super human capabilities with guns that fire. With guns. You know? You don't... Guns are okay. Don't get me wrong. However, it comes to a point where in loot and shooters, you want that power fantasy. You want to feel as powerful as you want. And Destiny 2 doesn't do that. Destiny 2 just doesn't hit that mark. And it's unfortunate that it doesn't. So that's another thing. Weapon systems in Destiny 2 compared to Destiny 1. Let's look at them. Destiny 2's weapon systems are another big reason why I don't like to play this game. We have 2 primary weapons and a power fantasy slot. Right? Hear me out. 2 primary weapons in a video game that's supposed to make you feel like a badass. The ultimate defender of Earth. Of the last human civilization in existence. Is supposed to make you feel like a badass. Right? You're supposed to be this all badass guardian that defeats gods. In this game, weapons are underwhelming. And from a power fantasy standpoint, yeah, you may get 1 or 2 good weapons in the primary slots, but it doesn't equate to having a sniper rifle in your secondary or your power energy weapons slot. It doesn't adhere to it. You know, rocket launchers, swords, LMGs all adhere to the power fantasy, right? Because they're supposed to be these guns that you wield in your territories, in your triary slot. They're supposed to be those weapons of mass destruction. Okay? Energy weapons are supposed to be the backups to your primary. Your sniper rifles, your shotguns. The weapons that you switch to when you can't necessarily use your primary weapons. And I understand what they did here. They did it for balance. Okay? But let's talk about balance real quick in video games. Balance isn't always a good thing in video games. Balance equates to less fun, per se. Pong. We could take Pong. We'll take the Legend himself's example, Slayer's example. Okay, Pong is a great example of balance. The game is perfectly balanced. However, after you play the game of Pong for so long, it doesn't become fun. You know, you could play Pong against your friend, against a computer, for X amount of hours, X amount of days, X amount of months, whatever the case may be. But after those first few matches, you start to get bored. Why? Because you don't feel any more or any less powerful than what you began with. In Destiny 2, it kind of resembles the same thing as Pong. Where, yeah, cool, I get a weapon. I get to shoot alien. I may not have superpower, but I don't die. You know, I don't feel like I'm going to die. I don't feel like I'm in a fight or flight situation. I feel like, okay, I'll eventually get this back. You know, I'll get it back because there's no point in the story to where it says, oh, if you do this, you fail to get said power back. Right? That's tangenting from the examples of balance. Okay. So, balance. What I mean by balance in Crucible. Let's go. Let's go to the stupidest mode in this game, Crucible. Any Crucible mode. Crucible, they did the weapon systems for Crucible for competitive nature. Destiny, in the words of Luke Smith, in the words of anybody at Bungie, is not supposed to be a competitive game. It just wasn't marketed for that, and it wasn't designed for that purpose. The Crucible is there for people who like to verse other people. Trials of Osiris was only implemented because it was canon to a lore story. Iron Banner was there because it was canon to a lore story. Get where I'm going with this? It all derives from the player versus enemy game that this game was marketed upon. Right? So why do we need to have a game where I have to sacrifice my power fantasy in the name of balance to a busted game mode, a not fun game mode, where it wasn't designed to be in a very balanced or competitive nature? You know? I don't want to sacrifice my Fatebringer, my Gallarhorn, my Icebreaker, my Invective, just because of PvP. No, I want to be able to go out there. I want to be able to be a God Slayer. But I want to feel like a God Slayer. Right? I don't want to feel like a balanced meta. I want to be able to go out there. And I want to be able to look Callous Robot in the face, or Argus in the face, and be like, this is my fucking gun. This is my big fucking gun, and you're going to get destroyed by it. Where's that, Bungie? You know, where is that? Where is that fantasy of going out there and utilizing the weapon of your choice to the power fantasy of your choice? Gone are those days. They don't exist anymore. And it sucks. Another thing that I don't like about this game is the lack of character building customization. So, we can look at our tree. Any one of the characters' sub-trees. Whether it be Dawnblade, Voidwalker, Dawnblade, Voidwalker, what the fuck's the other one? Stormcaller, Golden Gun, Night Stalker, Arcstrider, Defender, Sentinel, Hammer of Soul, I'm just gonna name them off as I think, and Lightning Slam motherfucking Titan, right? We could look at these builds. Excuse me. We could look at these builds, and we get two trees, two basic and to the point trees, to where I can't pick whether I want where I can't pick a combination between where if I want Wing Sun and I want Ignite Touched, or I can't pick combinations. It's one or the damn other. One or the other. You know, it's cool over here that I could pick whatever glide I want, whatever grenade I want, if I want a healing rift or an empowering rift. Cool. But at this point, who the hell cares about this half of the tree when building, making your character as powerful as they can be, adhering to certain situations in the game, adjusting to them as you go via a skill tree, is gone, making it a two-way system with this game. You can't customize the abilities of your character behind 2 locked trees. These 2 locked trees make the game basic. And it sucks. I want to be able to build, say, an explosive sword build that I could use fucking Phoenix Dive and shit. When I use Phoenix Dive, I want to be able to blast the ground, right? I want to be able to do that. But there's no such abilities, no such trees in this game that allow me to dive and go boom. You know, these locked trees also lock the player power fantasy. And I think that's my biggest issue with this game, is that there's no power fantasy. It's not the it's partially the weapon systems, it's the way that Crucible is designed, it's partially the campaign, but it's overall, where's my incentive to play? Where's my power fantasy? Where's the reason why I'm a Guardian? Why am I a Guardian? In the first place. I guess Bungie did a good job at making me ask that question. Why am I a Guardian? What makes me a Guardian? Right? Is it just space magic, or is it combination of space magic and the fact that I can use powerful guns to slay gods? That's why I can't play this game. That's why it's super hard for me to jump into PvP or even PvE and sit here for 5, 10, 15, 20, an hour, however long it is, and just play the game. It's not fun. That's why it's not the game for me. It's just not fun. It doesn't make me want to play the game. It doesn't adhere to my needs to want to play. I guess what I'm trying to say. And is it sad? Yes. But that's just the direction that the developer took. Now, I'm not going to call this game bad. Okay? It's a fantastic game. For what it is. However, it's not a good Destiny game. We could look at future updates, in fact. Future updates. One just passed, and it was on my birthday. Right, February 27th. They added Nightfall scoring and high score tracking. They added destination emblem variants, which, okay, yeah, you tracked how many public events and how many lost sectors they did. Cool. Nightfall emblem variants. You complete a heroic Nightfall, or prestige Nightfall, and you get the aura around your neck, but the aura goes away at the end of the week and gives you an emblem. Okay. Like, what does that do for me? It shows that, yes, I did the prestige Nightfall for that week, but you're not getting the point. Fire team members on destination map. Okay, cool. I can see where my fire team members are on this map right here. Cool. And there's some PC stuff. Okay. The next update. Weapon ability sandbox changes. Heroic strike modifiers. Iron Banner 6v6. Crucible playlist Mayhem and Rumble returning on rotation. Crucible ammo and gameplay tuning. Crucible quitter penalties. Repeat Crucible map strike protection. Exotic repetition reduction. Nightfall strike unique rewards. And companion vendor viewing. That's just for the app. Alright, let's break this down one by one real quick. So, on the March 27 update, version 1.1.4, sandbox changes. I viewed some of these sandbox changes, and it's basically a big Crucible change. Or supposedly. But Bungie still doesn't understand that 2 primaries and a heavy secondary doesn't make sense. Balance in a video game that's not supposed to be balanced doesn't make sense. I want to be able to wield a sniper rifle in Crucible without having to draw powerful ammo. Now, granted, they have power ammo dropping from enemy players if you kill someone with power ammo. Why? Why? You know, what does that do for me? If the meta, the overall meta, is 2 primaries. It does nothing. You know, the power ammo in Crucible is basically fuck all, unless you get power ammo. So this whole entire slot is basically basically moot, unless you're the one to draw that power ammo. You're depending on your 2 primaries. You see where this is kind of going? You're kind of scratching your head, like, where's the power fantasy in Crucible then? Well, shit, it's in the mood. It's in the fuck all slot. Do you want to be able to feel powerful in Crucible? Yes. Okay. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, based on your skill gap, it's based on how well you can perform against other people. Again, Destiny wasn't supposed to be created as a competitive multiplayer game. You're supposed to have weapons in this game that, A, make you powerful, and 2, adhere to certain metas. Right? So the Fatebringer from Destiny 1 was an excellent PvE meta gun. Icebreaker could do both. Okay. And then we have guns like the Last Word. Pre-hand cannon nerf. Last Word, Thorn, and Hawkmoon. Both those guns, all 3 of those guns, were power fantasies in the Crucible. Why? Because they were close range guns, close to mid-range guns that did a lot of fucking damage and really wiped the board, you know? Of course, Bungie needed to tune them back because they kind of deserved a little bit of a slap. But the slap that they got was stupid. But that's in the past. If I wanted to play Crucible, the meta right now, I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know what it is. You know, is it scout rifle? Is it auto rifle? Is it fucking trace rifle? Or will the meta be shifting over to power fantasy? I don't know. See, I think that's the positive light about the Crucible right now, is that there isn't a direct meta. You have people running around using all sorts of guns. Which is another reason why this exists. But at the same time, all of these weapons except for the 2 trace rifles exist up here. Right? So if I'm using an auto rifle down here, well, shit. Why would I do that when I have one up here? Kid, you're gonna run out of ammo. Well, then that's piss poor ammo management. That's what that is. Okay. Alright. Moving on. The start of season Iron Banner 6v6. Or Heroic Strike Modifiers, rather. Okay, why this was something that should have been implemented in the base game. Moving on. Iron Banner 6v6. Crucible 6v6. Should have been implemented in the beginning of the game. Moving on. Weekly Crucible playlist Mayhem and Rumble. Again, same ditto, whatever. Should have been in the game to begin with. Moving on. Crucible ammo and gameplay tuning, we talked about this. Crucible quitter penalties. Again, you're trying to make it a competitive system. Don't do it. Repeat Crucible map and strike protection. I mean, you're only limited to so many maps. You're bound to play the same map again. It's just what's going to happen. Unless you got 50 maps and 50 strike maps in rotation, you're going to run into the same map. Whether that's back-to-back or whether that's an A, B, B, A, C, B, B type deal. You're going to run into the same map. Exotic repetition reduction. I mean, okay, fine. Like, you haven't already done that before. Nightfall Strike, unique rewards. Okay, so this is a good thing. Vex Strikes gave you the Imaga Loop. Cabal gave you Tread Upon Stars. Fallen, I believe, gave you... Oh, shit, what was that auto rifle? Unless that was a Taniks exclusive. And then Scion Flares gave you the Flare Cloaks. Shit. Taniks gave you Taniks Cloak. All those were really good. All those were really, really cool. And I think that's a good change that's coming to this game. Companion vendor viewing, that's an app thing. It's fuck all to this, means fuck all to this game. Season 3. Eater of Worlds Prestige Mode. Okay, so in Season 3 you're going to get something that Season 2 should have had already. Seasonal Crucible rankings. Okay, so you're going to give us a competitive ladder. Why? Again, stop making it competitive. Private matches, for the love of God, that should have been in the game to begin with. Moving on. Vault space increase. This has always been a problem with Destiny. This is always going to be a problem with Destiny. There's nothing that's going to change about vault space. People are collectors. The only way you're going to change vault space is if you just give players an infinite amount of vault space. Multi-emote. Okay, so you're going to give us an emote wheel. Okay. Monster Hunter does the same thing. Fortnite does it. Warframe does it. A lot of games do it. I guess it's an okay thing if you're an aesthetics kind of person. Exotic Masterworks. Okay, so you're going to do something that you've never done in this game. You're going to give exotics, say like Vigilance Wing, a buff to range, stability, handling, speed, and impact. On top of that, give it the ability to create an orb of light. Again, unless they really truly change Masterworks to be detrimental to the weapon and the overall balance to a weapon, it does fuck all. It really does. Seasonal vendor progression. Okay, so this is going to reset. Okay, that's what seasons do. Faction rally improvements. Faction rallies. Let's talk about faction rallies for a second. Faction rallies should be a thing that happens monthly. Say you start at the beginning of the month, you ally with a faction, and then everything anybody does with all those factions all go into the Grandmaster pool for a one-time limited-only faction weapon that they all fight for. Right? So the winner, say at the end of the month, let's say Dead Orbit has 700,000 points, New Monarchy have 6,999, and Future War Cult at 5,000. Just throwing some beans out there. All compete together, get these points. Well, Dead Orbit wins the faction rally. They get this one time, never again will be sold, never again will be seen in this game weapon that is only exclusive to Dead Orbit users. Okay? And this weapon for one, is a powerful weapon. It doesn't have to be exotic. It has to be legendary. But it does something insane. Something that adheres to the power fantasy of the game that we all want. Or me, personally. That many people want. It's got to have that power fantasy. It's got to do something really cool. It's just got to be that weapon that people look at and say, holy shit, I did this. I helped. I got this weapon. I was part of this community event that granted me this kick-ass weapon. It gave me an incentive to play this game. It gave me a reason. That's what faction rallies need. And throughout the entirety of the faction rally, throughout that month, you got monthly rotating gear. And say at the end of the season, the faction with the most points at the end of the season get a massive reward. Maybe an exotic emblem, which hasn't been seen since the first Trials of Osiris. Maybe it's some really crazy community designed exotic only available for that faction and can never be brought into the game again. Say the Fate of All Fools comes into the game for fuck all reasons. I don't know. Just something that gives the player incentive to play and gives them a power fantasy. Exotic weapon and armor sandbox changes, whatever they may be, they'll come up soon. Season 3 in May also brings the new DLC Gods of Mars expansion. Lightly touching on Gods of Mars, I hope it does better to adhere to the player's incentive and power fantasy. I hope the story is a lot better than Curse of Osiris's and a hell of a lot better than the base games. My problem with Curse of Osiris's expansion was that it still had that generic good guy versus bad guy boss battle where, yeah, cool, I got through the story, I learned a little bit about more lore, a lot about more lore, but at the end of the day, it was a short, sweet campaign that really doesn't affect me other than my overall level. The Infinite Forest was horrible, but again, that was a bridge designed to get you from area to area. I wish it was more explorable, just on patrol, just to walk in there and say, hey, I want to go to this simulation, to this simulation. I want to be able to find something in that forest that no one else has seen. I wish that was part of the Infinite Forest. I wish Mercury as a space was a bigger place. I wish they would have integrated SRL into the costing, the dawning. There's just a lot of things in this game that I wish were there that aren't. And that might be the biggest problem, is that I expect too much out of Bungie at this point. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, knowing what they can do and have done in the past. Even with Destiny, how they turned that game around. I might be expecting a bit too much out of Bungie. But as for a sequel, there's no excuse to not build upon your predecessor. Destiny 2 took a leap forward, but fell on its ass and slid 5 steps back. And it affected the community at large, and it affected the player base. It affected player incentive to want to play the game. You know, and it turned out to be the game that wasn't meant for everybody. It had its problems with Eververse and the microtransactions being one of the main loot sources. whether you grind out the game, turn levels, turn what is in your loot pool, or you just buy it straight out. That was another big problem with this game. There's just a lot of things that are wrong with this game that make me want to not play it. You know, and that's a sad thing. I love Destiny. You know, Destiny was the game that my friends brought me into when they were streaming Vault of Glass on PlayStation 4. I watched them, and I got the demo on PS3. I'm like, this is my game. This is the game I want to play. And I played it. And oh, golly, did I play it until the last day. Until the day this game came out. I wish I could still play this like I played Destiny 1, but I cannot. I just can't touch this game the same way that I felt the willpower to touch its predecessor. I don't feel like I am the guardian that this game promises that I would be. I feel like a generic hero doing generic things. You know, I don't know how to put that any other way. Again, this game isn't a bad game, it's just a bad Destiny. And that's why it isn't the game for me. Thank you all for listening to me bitch and complain at almost 2 in the morning for the last 40 minutes. If you have any opinions on this, think I'm wrong in any way, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one. Adios.